This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Twilight Show. Thank you for joining me. Today my special guest is Marina Velasca. Marina is an EdTech specialist whose expertise lies in applying technology to language teaching and curriculum design.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Twilight Show, everyone. I'm Graham Stanley speaking to you live from Mexico City. As I mentioned earlier, on today's show, I'll be talking to Marina Velasca about how EdTech can best be used to support students. Now, Marina Velasca holds a Master's in Education in Curriculum and Instruction from South Dakota State University in the US and an MA in Area Studies from Virginia Tech. She specializes in educational technology and its application in curriculum design and TEFL methodology. Based in Buenos Aires, she currently trains pre-service teachers, focusing on multimedia learning, English for specific purposes, and discourse analysis. And her research interests include EdTech, intercultural learning, and differentiated instruction. Marina is the new STAR Scholars Country Director for Argentina. STAR stands for the Society of Transnational Academic Researchers, and in her role, she aims to advance global education and foster intercultural exchanges through virtual workshops and collaborations aligned with the STAR mission. Her dedication to EdTech and global education is rooted in her Fulbright experience and ongoing research efforts. And I will be talking to Marina about how EdTech can be used to support students and more after the Teachers Talk Radio news.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Media outlets across England, Wales and Northern Ireland have covered GCSE and other Level 2 results in detail. Many stories highlighted the fact that Year 11 pupils receiving results this summer started Year 7 in September 2019, but were in lockdown before the first year of secondary school had ended, with the BBC describing the cohort as unique. Many stories focused on the GCSE pass rate, which has fallen for a third year running, back in line with 2019 levels. The drop was steepest in Northern Ireland, followed by Wales. In England, the plan was to bring grades back in line last year, but they remained a little higher. The regional divide continues to grow in England. London continues to be the highest performing region, with 72.5% of entries marked at grade 4 or above, compared to the 63.1% in the West Midlands. The gap is up from 8.7 last year to 9.4 percentage points. It seems the pre-COVID north-south divide is continuing. 4 out of 5 regions in the North and Midlands had a lower pass rate this year than in 2019. But in every region in the south it has risen. Many have commented that long-term disadvantages within some regions are to blame. MPs warned last year that it could take a decade for the gap between disadvantaged pupils and others to narrow to pre-pandemic levels. Resits are also set to rise for both English language and maths. This is because the pass rate is slightly worse, but the 16-year-old population has grown since the pandemic, so more places on courses to resit will be needed. Colleges have previously said they'd increase class sizes due to population growth and grade boundary changes, but will now need to prepare for even more. This has prompted some to question whether the compulsory resit approach is still appropriate. Full details of the results analysis can be found on the BBC, TES and other education news websites. In Australia, the right to disconnect is coming into force. It gives employees the power to not respond to out-of-hours contact from their employer without suffering consequences. This has prompted some to consider the impact this could have on schools. While some legitimate out-of-hours activities have to take place, residential trips, visits and sport, etc., teacher unions have argued that staff should not be permanently on call. They have particularly focused on parent and student contact with teachers, especially via email, and the expected response times, which should be in place in order to protect work-life balance. The news from Australia has prompted fresh debate on social media regarding workload for teachers in many countries, use of emails, and the recruitment and retention crisis in the UK. The Guardian focuses on the story of a group of trainee female doctors from Afghanistan who have travelled to Edinburgh to complete their medical degrees after the Taliban forced them to quit. The 19 women arrived in the UK last week after a 3-year campaign by the parents of Linda Norgrove, the kidnapped Scottish charity worker who was killed during a rescue attempt by US Special Forces in 2010. A foundation set up by her parents worked with UK and Scottish officials to arrange safe passage and student visas. They have been given places at 4 medical schools after Scottish ministers changed the law to treat them as home students, eligible for free tuition. One of the women arriving said, "Our journey here will be long, 8 or 9 years. I think during this time many alterations and changes will come to Afghanistan. I am hopeful the situation won't remain the same." Finally, a primary school in Orkney has welcomed a new, unusual intake of pupils. According to the story on the BBC News website, the new class is made up entirely of boys. The rare occurrence is a first for the P1 class teachers, but the situation doesn't seem to bother the boys themselves, with one of the 18 saying the class was good without girls. The school is making sure that the boys will still have the opportunity to interact with girls outside the classroom, but that the boys-only class was really special and something they're going to remember forever. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
And welcome back, everyone, and a welcome in particular to my special guest, Marina Falaska. Thank you so much for joining me, Marina. I know it's quite early for us both, but what have you been up to recently?
Hi, Graham. No problem at all. Thank you for having me. It's a big pleasure to connect with you and be a part of the show. Let's see. I'm a pretty good multitasker, so I've been involved in several engaging projects. As you very well pointed out, I'm teaching courses on TEFL methods, discourse analysis, and educational research, including the application of multimedia in teaching. Right now, some of my student teachers are developing multimedia projects for high school students that integrate narrative planning and educational technology to promote sustainability and global change. And I'm, also involved with STAR, the Society of Transnational Academic Researchers. In my role as country director, I've been dedicated to advancing global education and fostering intercultural exchanges, as you also pointed out. I've recently organized a virtual workshop on the role of AI in higher education, and also a very successful webinar on collaborative online international learning, which is another area that I care a lot about, and I'm also deeply involved in. And as if that were not enough, I've been co-editing a book on innovative trends in K-12 and higher education that has kept me fairly busy, as you can imagine. And I'm also preparing to present my latest research at two upcoming local conferences in Buenos Aires. And I'm really, really looking forward to that. So yeah, I've been keeping myself engaged, as you can see.
Wow, that's it sounds like you've been very busy, or you are very busy. That's amazing. And Marina, so I wanted to ask you how you became a teacher. I'd love to hear what attracted you to education, for example.
Well, my mom was a teacher and also a systems analyst. She was
Wow.
quite progressive. Yeah. And she spent her last 25 years coordinating the ICT department at a local school in Buenos Aires. And when I was 19, I had the chance to substitute teach at her school while I was studying economics. And although I had not really considered teaching as a career at that time, I enjoyed the experience so much that I decided to pursue teacher training the following year. So
Wow.
that would be my story in a nutshell.
Wow, amazing. And so it sounds like you got the bug for teaching and for education technology from your mother. Is that right?
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Wow. And what about English? Why was it English teaching that you were attracted to at the beginning?
Well, I attended a bilingual school, and
Hmm.
when I was 15, somebody asked me, okay, what do you want to do next? And I was like, okay, well, maybe I should go into translation studies. And they were like, well, I mean, you know a lot of English. Why would you want to learn more English? And so I went for economics instead. But then, I had the chance to substitute teach at my mom's school, like I said, and I enjoyed it so much that I was like, I like teaching. Why not do it? And I had intended to do both, but teacher training was so time demanding that I ended up going for teaching only. So I'm not an economist or anything of the sort. I'm just a passionate English teacher, teacher trainer, materials writer, which I really, really love and enjoy doing. So no regrets at
Fantastic.
all. Yeah.
And how about when did you start teacher training? Was that early on?
Uh, well, back in 1996, if I'm not wrong.
Mhm.
I'm 47, so yeah, 1996. Yeah.
And how did you get involved with teacher training? Was that something you had your eye on doing for a while, or was it an opportunity that presented itself?
It was kind of an opportunity that presented itself. I was teaching at a local bilingual school in Buenos Aires. That was 2004, if I'm not wrong. And my head at the time was like, would you like to specialize in methods? Why don't you, specialize in methodology? There's an opportunity at a local teacher training college in the city of Buenos Aires. You should give it a try, and so I did. And the year after that, I applied for a Fulbright scholarship, and I ended up spending 5 years in the U.S.
Ah,
And when I, yeah, when I got back, I was offered a position at that teacher training college where I had started to specialize in methodology, and I still teach there. So it's been quite a while, over
wow.
25 years, if I'm not wrong.
So
Hmm.
tell me a little bit more about the Fulbright scholarship. Where did you go in the US, and what kind of things were you doing when you were there?
Well, I was a Fulbright foreign language teaching assistant at South Dakota State for
Hmm.
10 months back in 2005. I had originally intended to be in the US for only 10 months, but then, one of my teachers there, because apart from being a teaching assistant, I was also supposed to take courses.
Yeah.
So I took a couple courses in the master's program, and one of my teachers, who eventually became my advisor, was like, "Well, why don't you stay, and get your MA?" And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I came back the year after that, and I ended up staying for another year. So I basically did my first master's in a year,
Right.
which was kind of insane. But anyway, and then my brother and my sister-in-law were studying at Virginia Tech at the time,
Hmm.
and I was supposed to go back to Argentina when my first MA was over, and they were like, "Well, why don't you come join us at Virginia Tech?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So no, I mean seriously, I was really interested in their area studies program, and I decided to go for a second MA, which was not my original intention, but you know. Uh, I ended up completing my second MA around 2009,
Yeah.
and then I did my optional practical training, which is like an extra year that you get to
Hmm.
work on anything that is closely related to your last degree. And I went back to South Dakota, which was great because I got to teach there. I was a full time instructor for a year, and I got to teach 400 level courses. So it was wonderful. Actually, I got. Uh, I mean, I'm super happy about my experience in the U.S. because, like I said, I was originally planning to be there for only 10 months, and I ended up staying for 5 years. I have very close friends. Yeah, I'm still in touch with most of them. Some of them might be listening right now.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So,
Yeah. So.
hello out there if you're listening and you're a friend in the
Mhm.
US, Marina's. So, Marina, tell me a little bit more about this area studies. What exactly
Mhm.
is this?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question because many people ask me about that. You get to take courses on a variety of fields. I took PhD courses even, and you get to learn about different methods and strategies to
Mhm.
basically look into many different areas, including linguistics, cultural studies. That's how I got into the whole intercultural thing, and global education. Uh, because you basically look at, the society, culture, and history of a certain region. And at the time, I decided to go for Latin America for
Mhm.
obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Uh, so you basically study their language, literature, linguistics. So it's a wonderful program, and I got wonderful tools to incorporate technology even into the study of society, culture, and history. My thesis at the time was using web quests to enhance intercultural competence in the
Right.
foreign language classroom. Yeah.
Right.
So
And that's around the period you did your MA is when you became interested in research, I'm guessing. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had wonderful teachers at South Dakota State and Virginia Tech, and yeah, I mean, I really like research, and I try to stay active, even though that's not something that we're required to do in Argentina. I mean, it's not technically part of our job,
Hmm.
as opposed to the US where you do have to formally engage in research, but I've tried to stay active, and one of the reasons why I decided to join the START network was precisely that, right? I mean, I wanted to stay active and collaborate with people in other countries to do research on different topics. So
Right. And the STAR network, is that an international network? It
it is an
sounds,
international network. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, yeah, and actually, I got involved in that thanks to one of my Fulbright friends, Moshmi. She's from India,
Hmm.
and she kind of got me into that. uh, so yeah, I've been doing that for a little over a year, and it's been great.
And how did you become country director of this network then? Was that something you applied for, or did someone put you
Yeah,
forward or
well,
suggest it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Moshmi said, "Well, why don't you apply for the country director position in Argentina? We don't really have anybody in Latin America."
Mhm.
And I said, "Are you sure? Should I be doing that?" And I mean, I had to come up with like a plan, a 2-year plan. Uh, but I did that, and then I was granted the position after having completed the STAR Certified Research Training Program, which is a very intensive program where you gain very valuable research skills, leadership skills. So I was not granted the position until after having completed the training.
All right. And how long have you been the country director?
A little over a year. I started
Right.
out back in April 2023. Yeah.
Wow.
hmm
Great. So, Marina, the main focus of today's show is on how educational technology can be used to support students.
hmm
And I've already started asking how you became interested in technology, which I think for teaching and learning.
hmm
And it was your mother, is that right? Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, growing up, technology was always a part of my life. Like I said, my mom was both a teacher and a systems analyst. So I was exposed to many different technological tools and concepts from a very young age, which sparked my interest in how technology could be leveraged in different fields. And I guess this early exposure to technology combined with my experience substituting at my mom's school made me realize the potential of integrating technology into education. I think I was particularly fascinated by how it could enhance teaching and learning. And this interest led me to explore the use of educational technology more deeply at South Dakota State, and ultimately shaped my career focus. Like you've very well pointed out, I've since been dedicated to researching and applying technology in different educational settings to improve learning outcomes and engagement.
Great. So I'd like to ask you about how should teachers and institutions best approach the integration of EdTech into the curriculum? What role should EdTech have in language learning in particular?
Well, when it comes to integrating EdTech into the curriculum, I believe it's crucial to align technology with our educational goals and make sure it enhances our teaching objectives. I always try to select tools that are evidence based and meet specific needs while also making sure they're accessible to all students. And I also think that providing proper training for teachers is key. I usually begin with a small scale rollout to see how the tools work in practice, gathering feedback and assessing the effectiveness of these tools helps me make any necessary adjustments. And for language learning, I find that EdTech can really boost student skills by offering interactive and immersive experiences. Many of the latest AI applications and tools support personalized learning. They also provide opportunities for authentic language use through simulations and interactive scenarios, and some of them can even deliver instant feedback on their exercises. But you don't necessarily have to get super techy. You can use very simple multimedia resources like videos and podcasts, which can also make the learning process more engaging. For example, videos can provide visual context and demonstrate real life applications of language skills, which helps the students understand and retain information more effectively. They can also showcase authentic language use, such as dialogues, cultural nuances, and accents, giving learners a more comprehensive grasp of the language in different contexts. Also, podcasts are great. I mean, they can offer a wonderful way to improve listening skills and expose students to different speaking styles and topics. They can be useful for practicing comprehension with different accents and speeds of delivery. And videos and podcasts can be easily integrated into lessons to complement other teaching methods. So overall, my approach is to integrate technology into the curriculum in a thoughtful and deliberate manner, which basically means carefully selecting and implementing EdTech tools that align with my own teaching goals, but also meet the specific needs of my students. So it's not just about adopting the latest technology, but making sure that it genuinely enhances the learning experience and supports your own teaching objectives. I also think that it's important to constantly evaluate the impact of these technologies on student outcomes. This obviously involves regularly assessing how well the tools are working, gathering feedback from students and teachers, and also analyzing data to understand their effectiveness. So that basically helps me make informed adjustments to improve the integration process, address any challenges, and also make sure that the technology itself provides real value. And, that way I can refine and optimize my approach and use technology to its, fullest potential to benefit student learning and engagement.
Great. That's quite a summary. Fantastic, Marina. Could you talk a little bit about how you use the gathering of data to kind of analyze how technology is being used in the classroom or for language learning and teaching? I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, yeah. My student teachers are wonderful resources in that sense. I get to try things out with them. Like I said, I usually go for applications that are free and available for all students. And sometimes they're not that great. There are things that you need to tweak to make good use of them and to incorporate them into lessons effectively. So it's important to, pilot the applications, try them out, see what the results are, and if necessary, go for something else. And regarding feedback, I think that's crucial. That's basically what allows you to make informed decisions. And eventually you may have to go for something else if the results are not, what you had expected. So basically evaluating the tools and the impact of the technology on student outcomes allows you to refine and optimize your approach to EdTech.
Wow, yeah. And thinking about your student teachers, what kind of what kind of integration of EdTech are they interested in at the moment? And I'm imagining you see that change over the years. Is there a particular focus at the moment that the teachers are interested in?
Yeah, interestingly, I've been teaching multimedia applied to ELT since 2011. And my student teachers before the pandemic were way different from the student teachers that I'm teaching right now. Because we were all, forced to explore applications and try things out without really knowing what we were doing. And they come with a lot more background knowledge regarding, what applications might work best. They actually get to use the applications with their own students. Most of them are teaching at the same time. So, I basically have to adjust to their own demands, and I try to help them meet their own needs. Whatever project we design, I always encourage them to try it out with their own students so that they can get real feedback and make any necessary changes if they have to. But yeah, I mean, we work on a variety of topics. Over the last few years, I have incorporated topics like augmented reality, virtual reality. We've actually worked on a very interesting project which entails turning a traditional textbook unit into an enhanced unit using AR applications like Unite AR, RLupa, Natural Reader. They've even created their own virtual worlds using Mozilla Hubs, for example. So obviously we have had to adapt to the changes, and what started out as a fairly simple multimedia course has now evolved into what I would call an ICT course, almost. Yeah.
Wow, that seems like quite a change. What about, I imagine a lot of your student teachers started becoming interested in video conferencing and remote teaching and then asynchronous platforms for learning as well. Is that the case? And have you seen that interest continue subsequently or not?
Not so much, not so much. At least in Argentina, most of us have gone back to face-to-face teaching. And my student teachers teach at the primary and secondary school level, so there are no remote classes. We do offer some blended learning courses at university, but that's not the case at the primary or secondary school level. So unless they're teaching one-on-one lessons, and some of them actually do teach one-on-one lessons, some of them might use Zoom or any other platform to deliver virtual one-on-one lessons, but that's about it. They don't get to teach remotely at primary or secondary school.
Right, of course, that makes sense. But I imagine they came with a lot more sort of knowledge and understanding about using the internet for language teaching and learning. Is that right?
Totally. Yeah. Like I said, we've all had to experiment over the pandemic, and they know a lot more resources. They're familiar with lots of apps. They can even suggest, possible apps to work on different topics and projects. So the class has become a lot more engaging in that sense, because they bring a lot more into the whole classroom experience, and I get to ask them, okay, what shall we do now? How do you think we should do this or that? Instead of telling them what to do, they can also, share ideas and come up with their own solutions. So it's a lot easier for me in that sense.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
And you mentioned virtual reality as being something that you see teachers experimenting with as well. I'd love to hear you talk more about that. What kind of virtual reality? Is the virtual reality with the headsets or a different kind?
Yeah, not so many teachers are actually doing that. I mean, this is something that I've decided to incorporate as part of the course because I think it's worth trying out. But yeah, I mean, I have my own headset. And sadly, we don't really have headsets at university that we can share. So I basically bring my own headset and show them how to use it. And that's about it, because we don't really have access to that. But, at least they get an idea of what their possibilities are. And if they ever get to use that at school or, at the language school that they might be teaching, then they will know how to go about it. but it's not something that is super widespread.
Yes, that's why I was asking, because I imagine, the big barrier, isn't it, is the headset. The headsets are quite
Very
expensive,
expensive.
and also it strikes me that using VR headsets for language learning kind of isolates you. So I think it's perhaps something that is interesting to do as an individual at home, but I can't
True.
imagine it being effective in a group scenario. Can you?
Yeah, well, actually, we had an interesting experience last year. One of my trainee teachers, not last year, the previous one of my trainee teachers brought her own headset, and
Mhm.
then all of the trainee teachers got to try it out, and they were so engrossed in the whole thing that they would forget where they were, and. We kind of, got to the same conclusion. uh, what do you do when you have 20, 30 students in the class? I
Mm.
mean, is that something that we want? Everybody will be doing their own thing. There won't be any real interaction. I think it's okay, uh, like you said, to assign homework or have the students play with that for a while at the beginning or at the end of the lesson. But obviously, you need to plan things well and think about how you can effectively integrate VR into the actual, design of a lesson.
Yeah. I mean, I can see how if you have one headset for use with the class, you could incorporate into, for example, station work. So you could actually have
Exactly.
the
Mm.
VR experience, because it's a very exciting and interesting thing to experience. I think to actually to do it. So you could definitely, perhaps, I wouldn't even use anything specifically aimed at language teaching, but actually a simulation where the students had to move around or do certain things within the VR environment, and then perhaps report on it on their, or write something, or to talk about their experience of what they did, would be a way of using it, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they can obviously practice writing or speaking when they report back. So, yeah, that would be an interesting way of approaching it for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And then the other thing I kind of, so I've obviously I have a headset and have tried playing around with it and thinking about this as well myself. But I think the other thing is that it doesn't lend itself to using VR. The headset doesn't lend itself to using it for a very long time. I find that after about 10, 15 minutes, it starts hurting my
Dizzy.
head.
Yeah,
More than dizzy,
more
it
than
starts
dizzy.
kind of
Mm.
hurting, and I want to take it off. It isn't something that I can imagine wearing for longer than about 20 minutes without it actually being really um, hard to actually bear.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have an 8-year-old who's been into VR for quite a while now.
Yeah,
I think we bought him a headset 2 or 3 years ago,
yeah,
and I don't let him use it for more than 10 minutes precisely because of that. So,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And then, of course, there are some of the apps that do make you very, very dizzy and
Hmm. Hmm.
sick. There are some games, for example, were recommended to me that I started playing, and I can't play them because they change you know, they make me want to throw up, basically.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a roller coaster game which is kind of interesting.
Right.
I mean, and that makes you feel dizzy for sure. Yeah,
And then the
yeah,
other danger, of course, is I remember trying out one of these VR apps, and I ended up
hmm,
punching the wall as I got overexcited.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I usually recommend, my trainee teachers to stay seated while they use it because
Mm,
you get that need to start walking around and moving and you can hurt yourself actually.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, it's better if you stay seated and try not to move around so much.
Yeah, I've subsequently trained myself so I know not to walk around. But the
Hmm.
initial instinct when I first started using it was actually to move around in the space. And there's kind of warning signs that come up, but it still didn't help me at the beginning. But now I'm kind of used to it, so that's okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Marina, what about AR? I think augmented reality
Hmm.
is a really interesting area, which I haven't
Hmm.
explored very much. We did in a previous job. We had a an interesting project where we had augmented reality in various places. This wasn't for English language learning, but it was in English, so it was people were able to use it to practice or
Hmm.
to learn English. So various museums around the city of Montevideo, we have these banners
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
QR codes,
Hmm.
and clicking or scanning the QR codes led to a an AR video or information being played, and it was all about the life of Shakespeare. So it was quite an interesting experiment that I think was great to do. But that was my only kind of experience of augmented reality. What about you? What have you seen this being? How is this being used by you or your
Uh,
teacher?
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, we've been playing with a project that I've called turning a traditional unit into an AR enhanced unit.
Hmm.
So they go to explore different options, and we even came up with a glossary, an interactive glossary.
Hmm.
So using applications like Unite AR or our Lupa, they basically turned, you know, a reading comprehension into an immersive glossary sort of experience. So the students can, place their cameras or point their cameras at different words in the text, and then they get like a GIF or a video where they basically provide explanations in different formats, and that way they can understand the meanings and applications of words more effectively through images, graphics, even memes or music. So that results in a much more meaningful experience, and also stimulates other senses. Um, my student teachers have also turned um, you know, maps into AR augmented maps.
Mm.
So yeah, using Unite AR, you can scan the map and move around the different places and see different types of geographical features in the different regions, and they also get to scan specific sections of the map to learn vocabulary related to different features. So yeah, it's really cool. And what else have we went? Well, we've used Meta Class, which is another application.
Yeah.
Meta Class. It works as a type of software. So you basically superimpose AR layers on the image that is captured with the mobile device's camera, and very much like you said, different information can be displayed in real time. Uh, so we use, for example, a unit in a book where there were different museums actually and different recipes. So the students got to scan the images and access virtual tours of the museums or videos where the actual recipes were explained. So that was really cool. And some books come with that already, but it was interesting for us to play with a traditional unit and turn it into an AR enhanced unit using all of these apps that I've mentioned.
Wow, that sounds great. I love the idea of scanning the maps and turning them into what a
Hmm.
3D. You're scanning, would that be a paper map you would be scanning or something
Yeah,
off the screen?
yeah,
Paper map.
yeah, yeah. Paper map. Yep.
Wow.
Hmm.
And it automatically turns it into a kind of 3D element, does it?
Right. Yeah, you have to play with the app
Right.
so that that happens. But yeah, some of the apps are not that, user friendly. Unite AR is not the best, but I mean, you can get around it with practice. So it might take a while, but student teachers these days can get around pretty much anything and everything. So it's
Yeah.
not a big problem for them.
Yeah. And then related to what you were saying earlier, I'd love to hear a bit about perhaps some of the older technology, if I can say that, that is
Mm-hmm.
still popular. You mentioned podcasts, for example, which have been around for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
is that something that you still see your teachers using a lot of? And is it listening to podcasts or creating podcasts that you find them doing?
Yeah, actually, I've asked them to use the Podbean app, which is the
Oh,
one that
right.
we're using right now. Yeah, to create their own podcasts, and this was back in 2013, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've been using apps like Podbean to create their own podcasts. But now with so many AI applications, it's a lot, better for them to use apps like Suno AI. I don't know if you know that one. You can actually create music with that. You get to create your own songs, your own lyrics, and there are plenty of other AI apps that basically turn text to speech. So you basically type in your script and you get a podcast. Boom, just like that. So I
Yeah.
guess there are other options these days that they can go for.
Yeah. Have you heard of UDIO? That's another one.
No, not so much.
I
No.
haven't used Suno, but udio.com is a song creating app that I've used that I think is really good. I'll just
Okay.
Suno. It automatically creates music and letters music and lyrics based on style of songs that you put in. So you could say create a guitar-based pop song or a vocal jazz song or a hip hop song, and it will generate automatically the lyrics as well. Or you can put in your own lyrics. So, in other words,
Yeah.
for students, I think that's quite good because you can actually get them to write song lyrics and then have them create songs from the lyrics that they write.
Yeah, you can do exactly the same with Suno AI. So I guess they work in very, in a very similar way. Hmm.
Right. Okay, I'll have
Yeah,
to
and
check.
I mean, my trainees have actually used Suno AI to create their own songs for teaching purposes. Some
Yeah,
of them are doing their practicum right now at primary school. And for example, the last song they created was about likes and dislikes. So it was like a rap, you know, including different fruits and vegetables. So, do you like this? Yes, I do. Do you like
yeah,
that? And they created a pretty cool song using Zuno AI app, which was kind of a rap. So
yes. I think that's
that's.
the other great use of it, isn't it? Because
Hmm.
I remember having to search for songs about particular vocab sets or grammar,
Oh yeah.
and
Hmm.
it being quite a task, taking a long time to find something that it was understandable for your level. Whereas with these types of apps, you can create something within a few minutes based on whatever
Hmm.
you want to teach. I mean, it might not be the best of songs, but it's a fun way of presenting and practicing grammar, isn't it?
Yeah, totally,
For example, a
totally.
vocabulary.
And like you said, it saves a lot of time. So
Yeah.
that's also a big plus. Hmm.
So, Marina, turning now
Hmm.
to specifically to curriculum, syllabus, and course design, which is
Hmm.
another area that I know you're very interested in. What
Hmm.
aspects of this do teachers and organizations need to take into account? So, for example, say a teacher wants to update the curriculum, course, or syllabus, where would you suggest they start?
Okay. Well, when I'm updating a given curriculum, a course, or syllabus, I always take into account or consider how technology can enhance the learning experience. So, um, first, I make sure that any new technology supports what we're trying to achieve. For example, if my goal is to make lessons more interactive, I might incorporate tools like interactive apps, multimedia resources, or online platforms. So I usually begin by reviewing the existing curriculum to identify areas where technology could add value, which might mean integrating digital tools that provide interactive exercises, using multimedia content to bring topics to life, or even adopting software that offers personalized learning paths depending on what my goals might be. So then I researched the latest educational technologies to find those that fit well with the students' needs, and create a plan for integrating them. I find that collaboration is key. So I usually consult with colleagues and even my student teachers. I gather input from them to make sure that the technology we choose will actually improve the learning experience. And I might even pilot new tools with a small group first to see how they work in practice, and make adjustments based on the feedback that I get. Once the updated curriculum is implemented, I basically try and keep a close eye on how the technology is being used, and its impact on student learning. So I regularly collect feedback from both students and teachers to assess whether the technology is meeting their goals and making a positive difference. I can also talk briefly about what I ask my student or trainee teachers to do if they're looking to update a course or syllabus. I use the TPAC model to guide how they integrate technology effectively. TPAC stands for Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge, which means that I basically encourage them to consider three main areas: content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and technological knowledge. First, I ask them to start with content knowledge to make sure that any technology they choose aligns well with the core subject matter that they're teaching. For instance, if they're teaching a language course, I encourage them to select tools that enhance language skills and support the curriculum goals. Next, I have them focus on pedagogical knowledge, which basically involves understanding how to teach the content effectively. So I help them think about how technology can support different teaching methods and/or learning styles. For instance, I encourage them to use interactive apps to provide personalized learning experiences, or simple multimedia resources to make lessons more engaging. And finally, I encourage them to integrate technological knowledge by researching and selecting tools that fit well with their needs and those of their students. So, for example, I might ask them to create a plan for using these tools in the classroom, and basically, I try to make sure that they complement both the content and the teaching methods. And obviously, throughout the process, I make sure that they gather feedback from students, colleagues, and make any necessary adjustments based on their input.
Wow. And I'd love to hear more about why you choose the TPAC model. Is that something that you feel works particularly well for integrating technology into courses?
I do. I mean, it's not a new model, as you probably know, but I find it quite intuitive and logical, and so do my student teachers. So I often, bring it up in my classes. I think it works very, very well when it comes to, critically integrating technology into language learning lessons. So yeah, I think it's one of my favorite models, apart from the Sambor model, But yeah, like I said, it's quite intuitive and logical. So
What
I still bring it
what
up.
is it
Yeah.
about it that you like compared to the SAMRA model, the SAMR model?
What is it that I like best about the TPAC model?
Yeah.
Well, the TPAC model is more, what can I call it? Intuitive, like I said, and it helps you better see the connection between, the content that you're teaching, how you're going to teach it, and how exactly you're going to make sure that whatever technology you pick will actually enhance the teaching learning process. Um, and it's, simpler than the Xamarin model, I think. Yeah. I don't
Right.
know. Do you have your own preferences?
No, I was just interested in hearing what it was that you felt, why it was
Hmm.
you thought this was the best one. So it's interesting to hear.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the Xamarin model has become quite. It's quite logical, right? Because you substitute traditional textbooks for electronic copies. You use Canva
Mhm.
instead of paper quizzes. You have students use MS Word to turn in typed papers instead of written papers. And I think that's kind of become a little obvious, at least after the pandemic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. What about the dangers of using technology for language learning, etc.? Because a lot of
Mm,
a lot of people in the past have said that one of the biggest dangers is actually being technology led, if you like.
mm,
People, teachers, for example, using tech not because it's the best way to do something, but because they're enthusiastic about the tech. Do you think that's the biggest danger, or are there other sort of risks when it comes to using technology?
Um, I think there are ways around that. As long as you integrate games or applications effectively, and as long as the students see the purpose behind whatever it is that you're trying to do, then that should be fine. My biggest fear is that we might end up becoming lazy because
Mm,
AR kind of leads to that. If we don't teach our students to use AI applications well and critically, they might end up not thinking that much. See what I'm saying?
yeah,
So I think that's my biggest fear, that we might end up becoming lazy. Like I always like to say, uh, we need to combine artificial intelligence and human intelligence. So our artificial intelligence should augment human intelligence and not the other way about.
of course. Yeah, the use of AI has been interesting over the last year or so, hasn't it? The
Mm.
way that
Hmm.
when it first appeared, it was suddenly a flurry of teachers, I think, um, saying, "Oh, this means that students will be using a generative AI to actually produce texts, and they won't
Mm.
be doing it themselves." And then I think, I don't know about you, but then I saw a shift of teachers actually thinking, I can actually use AI to plan lessons and generate rubrics and mark my students' uh, tests, etc., or assignments. And so you have this weird situation where you could end up with, and I'm sure it is happening in some places. I'd like to think it isn't happening on a widespread level, but you can have the teacher generating a class plan, um, an evaluation, an assessment rather, and a rubric, and then actually asking the students to do it, the students using AI to generate the answers, and the teacher using AI to mark the results as well. So you could have a cycle where no
Mm.
humans are interacting at all within that so-called learning cycle. Maybe that's an exaggeration. I don't know. What do you think?
I hope it is. I wouldn't want that to happen at all.
Mm,
Um, I'm very much into what's called needs analysis,
mhm,
and you know, many people think that needs analysis is a feature of English for specific purposes, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. I always encourage trainees to do at least an informal needs analysis to find out, what their students' needs are, aside from, what the textbook might say or determine they should do, or even their coordinators or heads, because sometimes they feel that they're constrained by the demands of the institution. So as long as you keep your students' needs in mind, you can use AI tools to generate lessons or whatnot, but then you will have to tweak them and you will have to adapt them to make sure that you meet the needs of your students. And I think that's crucial. I have been playing with AI myself, and I have used Magic School AI to generate rubrics. I actually did an interesting exercise with my trainee teachers. They get to design their own English for specific purposes courses. So I asked them to plan a test for one of the units of the course that they were designing. And they also had to use Magic School to generate a potential rubric. Obviously, they had to come up with a good prompt so that, the tool would do a decent job. But then I had them use what's called rubric for rubrics. You can Google that, and you can find it online. So they had to assess the rubric that Magic School had produced based on the rubric for rubrics rubric. So that was an interesting exercise, and I think that's a good way of using AI, because you technically know what you're doing, and then you assess the result. You determine whether the result is effective or not by in this case, looking at a rubric for rubrics. So I think that's the way we should approach it. I don't know what you think.
Yes, I think you're right. I think the idea of not engaging with it and adopting it is a little bit silly because it's becoming more and more part of the real life. So why wouldn't you want to incorporate it into education to help students, teachers, etc., to be able to look at things critically? Is that what you think? Is that the kind of role that you see this generative AI having in language teaching and learning?
Yeah, actually, I think, it can save a lot of time, but like I said, we need to be in control. We need to know what we're doing. We need to be critical of whatever we get. And like anything else, we need to try things out and see what the results are. And then if we have to change things next time we use the same tool, then we will have to do it, because again, it should all be about the students' needs. So unless we make critical use of these tools, then I think we won't be getting good results. So yeah.
And it offers a lot of potential for differentiation and personalizing learning, doesn't it? These tools.
Oh yeah. I've been playing with some apps for reading and listening. For example, Newsella, which adapts articles to different levels. I've also played with Linguisticator, which provides summaries and vocabulary aids for audio and video content. There's other personalized learning platforms like Linkvist and Memrise, which are great at tailoring teaching content to what you and your students need most. But again, you need to monitor what your students are doing and assess the results to make sure that your students are actually making the most of the experience.
Yeah, the kind of critical use of AI is definitely worth encouraging, isn't it? And in particular, it offers that kind of instant feedback, doesn't it? Or it can do.
It does, yeah. I think that's great when it comes to pronunciation, mainly. Also, grammar in some cases. I've played with Grammarly, for example. Grammarly is an app that analyzes your written text in real time. It offers corrections for grammar, spelling, punctuation, and even style suggestions. And it can help the learners refine their writing by pointing out errors and providing explanations. Sometimes I don't quite like the options it gives. So again, it's something that you need to monitor for sure. And Elsa Speak focuses on pronunciation. That's an app that uses AI to analyze your spoken language and it compares it to native speakers and gives instant feedback on how to improve your accent and make it better and whatnot. But sometimes, that's a little unrealistic when it comes to foreign language learners. So it might help learners practice speaking and pronunciation more effectively, but it can also discourage them. So I would recommend using it with caution.
Right. And then also things like ChatGPT now can act as language practice partners, can't they? Not specifically for language learning, but I know of a friend of my brother's who, when he drives now, when he goes on long drives, and he wants to keep awake, for example, he has ChatGPT on and asks and answers and interacts with ChatGPT to. So it has the effect of the same effect as having someone with him in the car, but it not being. It's impossible to bore ChatGPT, for example.
Right. Yeah, you can totally simulate realistic conversations in different contexts. So in that sense, it should be useful for language learning. I've had my discourse analysis students play with it, and the main problem chats or chatbots like ChatGPT have is that they're not very good at getting irony,
Yes, a lack of sense of humor.
Lack of sense of humor. So that is something that we play with because they learn about implicatures and whatnot. So the chat, cannot necessarily get will not necessarily get your implicatures. So I think that's a very human thing.
I hope that doesn't change, Marina. I hope we don't have.
I hope so too.
Chatbots that are actually starting to be ironic and actually have a decent sense of humor, because that would be very scary, I think.
Very scary, yeah, totally. Yeah. But learners can engage in dialogue with these chatbots to practice language in different scenarios like ordering food, making travel plans, discussing the news. It should be an interesting exercise for them to do. They would get to apply language skills in practical situations. And I don't know if you've played with Mondly's chatbot feature at all.
I know of Mondly, but I haven't played with the chatbot feature. No.
Yeah, well, Mondly offers an AI-driven chatbot that allows learners to practice speaking and writing, and there's different situations that they can engage in, and you also get instant feedback, and the learners get to adjust the language that they use based on the context of the conversation. But again, this might be a lot more useful when it comes to secondary school students or trainee teachers who basically know how the language works and they know exactly how to play with it.
Beginners.
Yeah, not beginners for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what would you say to a teacher who has so far stayed away from playing with AI because they're not kind of confident with it or not quite sure how to start? How should they begin?
Oh, interesting. I guess, it's all about trial and error. Because, nobody taught me how to use AI. I had to experiment with it and see things for myself. I'm a curious person by nature. So, I started playing with ChatGPT mostly. And then I started using other applications. And the problem is that you need to stay up to date, and there are new apps. I mean, there's always something new, so it might be hard to, keep track of the latest apps and technology. So that's not easy. You need time, and teachers are usually pressed for time. But I think it's important, for your learners' sake, to stay up to date, because your learners are surrounded by all these things and they get to play with them outside the classroom. So why not make use of all these informal strategies that they get to develop outside the classroom in the context of the formal classroom for educational purposes? That's very motivating, I think,
Yeah.
making use of the apps and tools that they play with outside the classroom with an educational purpose in the context of the formal classroom. So yeah, I would say ask your students, find out what they're using, use them as resources. I use my student teachers as resources, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that the students actually like that, because that shows that you care and that you want to find out what exactly they're doing. So I would say start by asking your students, see what apps they're using. Maybe they can teach you how to use them. And who knows, you might end up liking them and trying them out yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as well. Actually, this idea of actually using your students as a resource and taking an interest. If they're interested in and are using these tools, then the perfect thing to do to help the other students or trainees that you have would be to get them to kind of do a bit of a show and tell and use their
Exactly.
language to actually show everyone what they use them for, and that kind of engages them in what they're interested in as well, isn't it? Doesn't it?
Totally. Yeah. My student teachers usually give presentations on different apps and resources, and they have to explain how exactly they would use them and what for.
Yeah,
I think that's the most important thing, to think about how exactly to incorporate them into the classroom with a concrete purpose in mind, and to make sure that whatever you do actually enhances language learning.
yeah. And speaking about personalization that you mentioned before, the ability, what I think is a really interesting development is the idea that you can take some of these chatbots and kind of modify them to become so that the responses are very much tailor made to a particular audience. So you can design a chatbot that will respond in a particular way, almost acting like a teacher or a tutor, or correcting or presenting the language at a particular language level, etc. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I've actually created a custom chatbot with
Oh,
Poe
really?
AI. Yeah, Poe AI is quite intuitive and easy to use. But this chatbot basically answers my trainees' questions, and it provides on-demand answers to questions about the course, or specific teaching methods and best practices. That's about it. I haven't really experimented with anything else so far, but you can basically create a chatbot, with
Yep.
different purposes in mind.
Has that chatbot allowed you to kind of give it specific texts to use to provide the answers from?
Well, you basically go into Poe AI, you upload a picture that's optional, but it
Yeah,
gives your bot like a distinctive appearance.
yeah,
Uh, you select a bot name, you write a bot description. You can even select a base bot. So you provide a prompt, and you also have to provide some sort of knowledge base,
right. That's what
so
I
that the
meant.
bot right, so that the bot can actually answer the questions that the trainees have. You can
And
even
the knowledge,
provide a greeting
sorry,
message.
Marina,
Yeah,
the knowledge base can be your course notes, or does it
exactly.
have to be something? Oh, right. So it doesn't have to be something that's online. It can be
Mm-mm.
specific text that you provided. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and you can even suggest possible replies based on potential questions.
Okay, that's really good. So it's almost like having you have an assistant with you that is available at all times to answer simple questions, I guess.
Yeah, some people have actually called them generative twins.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Interesting. I'll have to
I think that's an
play with
interesting
that.
area to explore. Yeah,
Cool.
definitely.
Okay, that's great. So, Marina, I've taken up a lot of your time so far. I don't want to take up the rest of your Sunday. So I'm going to let you go. I'd just like to say thank you so much for being so generous with your time and experience and knowledge and talking about this. It's been fascinating to talk about what you've been doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I've actually enjoyed it. So no worries at all. Thank you for having me again.
That's great. So I'm going to wind up now. Thanks a lot, Marina.
Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of today's Twilight Show, everybody. Thank you very much to today's special guest, Marina Falaska, and all of you who joined us live. Thank you to all of you who are listening back to the recording. And remember, there are Teachers Talk radio shows all week on all manner of interesting topics, so please listen in live or to the recordings. And I hope you will join me at this new day and time for me on Sunday next week at the same time and day. Bye for now.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.